Good day, everyone. Today on the bench I'm going to tie you up cicada. This large fly imitates the cicada fly. We have a lot of those in North America. These flies here I'm just tying for a fellow that is heading to New Zealand. So I'm just getting the order wrapped up, so I figured I'll bring the camera out and show you how to tie this one as well. So what we're using here for a hook, I'm going to use a wide gape. This is a bass stinger hook, size 4. It's nice and light for bass poppers. The head, I'm going to use some 40-pound monofilament. This is in green. You can use clear if you have that, something large. The eyes I'm making out of the blue glass beads. He said that was important. Those fish, or the flies over there, were cicadas actually had blue eyes on them. The body, we're going to be using some olive or dark olive deer hair, and you want some coarse hair that'll spin. I'm going to use some bait fish emulator for inside the deer hair. I'm going to blend that in to give it some of this mottled appearance, and they're kind of a bright green, so that'll kind of help with the coloration there as well. And the wings, I'm going to use some deer belly hair. This is nice coarse deer that'll float very well, and under that we'll just use a little bit of pearl crystal flash to imitate the clear wings on the cicada, and that also gives it that deer hair floats quite well. I've tried some foam patterns. I just like the looks of deer hair and working with that better than sometimes foam. There is a lot of foam flies that work well out there. I'm not saying they don't. Okay, and then we will use some overwing. I'm just going to use some nice tips on some longer deer hair for the overwing, and the indicator. He liked, we said, what color do you like to see? He said orange, so I'm just going with a little bit of orange. This is body fur. You can use whatever you have, something like that, whatever color you prefer. So anyway, let's get a hook and a vise, show you how to tie this one. And something a little different for you folks, so sometimes it'll inspire you to tie up some other flies. We're going to tie on a piece of our monofilament here right at the front. X that on. And I'm going quite close to the front. And then I'm going to whip finish this off right here. Cut that off so we don't burn it on our next step. And I'll get, when I'm tying flies too, I'll prepare all the eyes first, and then I'll do the bodies. I step tie, even when I'm doing smaller orders, dozens or more or whatever, but kind of get more consistent, and then you just don't have to work with all your materials out at once. Okay, so we got just our beads on there. I'm going to light this up with my little torch, and it'll kind of burns down by itself. Oh, and then I blow it out when it gets to the desired length. You'll see it'll start, it's going to be on fire by itself here after a minute. There it goes. So then I blow it out and it just melts right into the eyes. Just give it just a little bit to let it cool off a little bit, so you don't pull that hot nylon off and the beads will pop off. Now I usually dress the shank in all my flies. I don't when I'm spinning hair. You want this hair to be able to slip around the shank, and so that's important. Not to dress the shank. You can if you want. It's just a little easier to do it this way. So now what I'm going to do is pinch off a little bit of my coarse deer hair. Get the under fur out, using too much of it in that coarse stuff. Then I'll get to my bait fish emulator. This just gives it some mottled appearance, and also gives it that coloration. You see, a lot of the cicadas over there are very bright green, and so what I'm doing is just kind of blending it in my hand here, mixing it up a little bit. And I got a pretty generous clump, about the thickness of a pencil. Take 2 turns loose, and I'll cut it short here. I'll just pull it and it'll spin. And you'll notice it finally kind of gets a bit of a bite, and I can push it back right there, and that'll start stacking. I'm going to do that again. I'm just moving ahead. I can get another stack in there with ends of that hair. Run the thread through it. Push it back with your thumbs. Make sure you don't run your thumbs into the hook, because you won't want to do that twice. It hurts. Okay, so that's got that back stacked pretty good. I'll grab another generous piece, a chunk of my hair again. Now hair takes time to work with. I'm kind of hurrying this through here, otherwise this could take a little longer than you think. So I'm just stacking you see I'm kind of stacking that emulator into the hair so it blends. Got a nice thick chunk on there, and once it'll spin, keep spinning. Oh, that's what happens, you get too much. Good example of that. I'll just start my thread back on there again. So that was a pretty thick chunk of hair that I had there. I'm gonna, now a little bit too much. So, and then that baitfish emulator is a little bit slipperier than deer hair too. So, a little bit of a mistake on my end, but that's okay. Just to show you some of those things. Now I'm going to get another list. This is about half as much as I had before. When I pull down, see, it'll bite. The other was not going through the hair properly. Didn't have enough. Had too much hair, and the thread wasn't getting to the shank of the hook. So then I'll just pull this back, keep stacking and packing this hair as I go along, and just get some good turns in there. Packs it in nice and tight. I'll go for another. I was getting kind of greedy there. I went for too big a bunch. I thought maybe I could hurry the fly along and build it in two segments instead of three. But see, that's what sometimes shortcuts aren't meant to be. Just take your time. Working with hair takes some patience, and especially when you go to cutting it. That emulator in there does not allow that hair to work like normal. It just got a little bit of slippery texture to it. But I want that color. It's pretty important to me to get that bright green color in there. I might just slip in a wee little bit in the front here just to fill that up. There we go. And that'll tighten right down. Now those eyes, I should have put a little dab of cement on there. You can see they've been rolling around on me. But I just want to get this demo done. I don't want to take half an hour with you here to tie a fly. Okay, so I'm going to cut my thread off at that point. Come in here with some hair scissors. And these are some curved. You can use straight if you like. And this is where the timing consuming part comes in, where you start trimming. And just give it a rough trim to start out with. Get rid of a good bunch of your hair. And then you can start taking some shape of the fly. And it's a narrow at the rear here. You can always cut, but you can't add when you get to this point. So take your time trimming here, and just keep working away at it till you get the shape you want. Make sure you look at naturals. You know, now with the internet we can get so many good photos of all the bugs we're trying to imitate, and see what their main characteristics are. Try to get those matched up. There's a few cicada patterns out there, but didn't see anything that really struck us. So we come up with this. And deer hair floats very, very well. Nice and light. So now I'm getting the shape, kind of what I want here, towards the back. I'm going to trim this belly off a little bit more. Flatten that out. Come over the top. Okay, I could keep trimming on that for a few more minutes, but I'm going to go and finish the fly here for you. Okay. Get it back in the vise. Trim it back. They're a chunky little bug, aren't they? Pretty big meal for a fish, and those cicadas start falling off those trees. The big browns are laying right tight underneath those banks and waiting for them, and they're coming out. When they see one of these go by, they're not going to let it go by it at all. We'll get our thread started back in here. Come in with a little of our crystal flash. Not too much. I'm going to tie some on each side. Pull it over the other side. And then it'll come back past the bend, almost body length again, 1.5 times or so. Okay, then grab my deer belly here. So I tried some hackle tips in there. They look pretty nice in the vise, but I got them in the water and swam them, and they just got wet and soggy. They didn't look right at all. And hair is so nice, you can pick it up, dry it off when you false cast a couple times. And so I'm going to come in here with a fairly good long piece of this deer belly here. Get it right on the top, and then cut off my butts. Trim them down good, and that'll come across top. When this is pulled in the water, this actually swims back. And doing some research, there was a guy talking about cicadas, and he had a fellow actually videoed some of these cicada flies from underneath, and apparently the wings are outright most of the time when they're in the water like that. So it's good to imitate that as well. So that's why I got a very splayed wing up top, and it's not that pronounced when it's in the water, so it looks pretty good. Alright, so I'll come in here with that indicator. A little patch of that olive, or that orange he likes. Put that on top so you can see it. And then we'll come in here with our long olive here for the overwing. Make sure you got all the under fur out of that. I'll just get a hair stacker here and line my tips up. Come out, they should be fairly straight. And then I'll tie them in at the bottom. Still got a hold of my butts here because I want to give them a trim. That'll kind of finish the bottom of the fly off there. I'll bring my hook around upright again. I grab all these tips and I come through the front by the eye. I may have crowded that just a little bit. There we go. Doesn't hurt to pull on this material either a little bit. There we go. That's pretty tight there now. The one that didn't want to behave, you can always cut the odd one off. There we go. That'll give it a nice profile. And put a little dubbing on there, but that thread's just going to dig right into that deer hair in the bottom, and give it a whip finish up top. Put lots of head cement on that, and away you go. And So the thread blends in there pretty good. I wouldn't worry about dubbing it. But you got a lot of that glint showing through, that nice emerald green that the naturals have. That's a little bit of clear to imitate that clear wing. You've got the head, the pronounced head of the cicada, the prominent eyes. That looks pretty good. So there it is, folks. Cicada pattern for you, and they do exist all over North America and many parts of the world. So these are a big food item. Fish will target that, and you'll be into probably your best fish of the season when you're fishing flies like this. So thanks for watching.
To watch all our latest Sport Fishing on the Fly episodes and to order Sport Fishing on the Fly merchandise, head to www.sfotf.ca. And if you would like to book an adventure like this one showing, head to ontheflyadventures.ca and book yourself the trip of a lifetime.